Hello and welcome to the Street Crime UK YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Today we look at a gunman and 5 others convicted over a concerted attack on the police were jailed for up to 30 years each after a court heard how they used guns to ambush unarmed police officers before turning their fire skywards. The Yobs, some said to have links with 2 notorious local gangs, set a landmark pub on fire as its staff cowered in living quarters upstairs to lure Riot police to the scene. Then, from behind the barricades, they goaded the officers and attacked them with missiles before opening fire. CCTV footage released by police shows a large group of men, some armed with baseball bats, gathered outside the pub, smashing windows and throwing objects into the road. At least 4 firearms were used in the attacks and 12 shots fired, with officers diving for cover as bullets flew over their heads. At least 2 shots were aimed at the helicopter, which had been brought in to monitor the disorder in Ashton, Birmingham, during rioting last August. Jailing the gang for a total of 124 years for what he branded a concerted attack on the police, Judge William Davis QC said the potential consequences of a helicopter being brought down by gunfire were catastrophic. Police said the gang were cowards who had displayed an extraordinary degree of criminality and malice towards officers. The man seen in the picture firing at the helicopter was said by police to be Tyrone Laidley, 20. Following a 6-week trial, he was convicted alongside Jermaine Lewis, 27, Nicholas Francis, 26, Wayne Collins, 25, and Renato Farrell, 20, of possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life, reckless arson and riot. Amural Rahman, 17, was convicted of riot and possession of a firearm. Police said some of the defendants had ties to local Johnson Crew gang, which entered the national consciousness in January 2003, when its members were the intended targets of a gang-on-gang shooting in the city. 2 innocent teenagers died. Others were tied to the raiders group from nearby West Bromwich, which was strongly allied to the Johnson Crew. The defendants were part of a masked gang of 41 who were armed with firebombs as they broke in and ransacked Barton Arms pub. Furniture was removed from the Victorian pub to barricade the street outside before officers in riot vans arrived. The officers came under fire as they attempted to disperse the crowd. Birmingham Crown Court heard the police helicopter track the group as it moved across Aston and recorded individuals twice taking aim and shooting at the aircraft. The incident ended when firearm officers attended the scene and arrested 3 of the men. The other 3 were linked to the scene through forensic work, mobile phone evidence and police intelligence. Sentencing. Judge Davis said the intention was to endanger life. Although no physical injury was suffered, that was wholly a matter of luck. Had the police helicopter been struck, the consequences could have been catastrophic. There may have been no physical injury to a police officer, but the damage to the well-being of the city of Birmingham caused an armed gang prepared to act in this way was grave. It is very difficult to conceive a case of this type more serious than this one. The judge said the disorder happened during a wave of lawlessness which had swept through a number of English cities last August, including elsewhere in Birmingham. Francis of Great Bar, Birmingham, was jailed for 30 years. The raiders gang member was said to have had a deeply antipathy towards the police, following Raider Lewis of Oldbury, West Midlands, and Laidley of Newgales, Birmingham, were jailed for 23 years. Mr. Collins from Luton and Mr. Farrell from Fitchfield, Wolverhampton, were sentenced to 18 years. Mr. Rayman of Aston was sentenced to 12 years detention. An order banning his identification was lifted after the sentencing. Outside court, the detective who led the investigation said it had been a miracle nobody was killed as a result of the disorder. Detective Inspector Andy Bannister said the gang lured police officers into an ambush by setting fire to the pub. These people showed a total disregard for the crew of the helicopter, the unarmed officers on the ground, members of the public, and the people inside the Barton Arms pub, he said. This may have happened on the same evening as the other disorder, but this was not about looting. I have never come across a case where the offenders have shown such a blatant disregard for the lives of police officers. The officers were in extreme danger, and the shots that flew over their heads would have hit them if not the gunmen had lowered their hands by a fraction. We could easily be looking at a murder investigation. They are a cowardly group of people. There is no kudos from shooting a gun at officers who are out protecting the local community. D.I. Bannister said the attack was planned and orchestrated, with the pub set alight as a tactic to draw as many police as possible into the area. Nicholas Francis, 26, was jailed for 30 years, while co-defendant Tyrone Laidley, 20, received 20 years. Renato Farrell, 20, was sentenced to 18 years, while Amural Rehman, 17, was given 12 years. The gang lured officers into the area by firebombing a pub and even shot at a police helicopter. The Barton Arms lies on the A34 arterial route to the north of Birmingham. It is a road which for 2 decades has acted as the unofficial boundary separating the city's two main gangs. The Johnson Crew, based in Lozells to the west, and Burger Bar Boys, east of the road in Aston, took their names from 2 cafes where black youths congregated in the early 1980s. The 2 groups were originally part of the same organisation, but the legend has it that the Triple Bs fell out with the Johnson Crew in a row over a game of Street Fighter on a computer. By the late 1980s, the Johnson Crew controlled most of the city's drug supply and were prominent in nightclub security. They were making tens of thousands of pounds a week. Killings linked to the escalating drugs turf war began in the mid-1990s. Between 1999 and 2005, gun crime in the city rose by 500%. But it was the murders of Charlene Ellis, 18, and Letitia Shakespeare, 17, in January 2003 which brought Birmingham's gang warfare sharply into the national focus. The innocent teenagers were gunned down at a New Year party in Aston in a drive-by attack by the Triple B members who were attempting to hit a member of the rival gang. While the Triple Bs were considered the more ruthless, the Johnson Crew were the more organised. By then, their numbers were swelled by affiliations with newer gangs such as the West Bromwich-based Raiders, of which rioters Nicholas Francis and Jermaine Lewis were said to be members, and the Cash for Money crew. Their ranks also included women, once considered useful for only providing alibis and to look after their men, but by then on the streets with weapons of their own. It was hit by the Raiders just a month earlier, which led to the double murder which became known as the New Year killings. On December the 6th, 2002, Triple B member Ioanni Martin, 24, was shot dead as he sat in his car in West Bromwich High Street by assailants linked to the Raiders. The prosecution in New Year shootings trial claimed his brother, Nathan, one of 4 men to be convicted over the murders of Miss Ellis and Miss Shakespeare, was blinded by hatred because of the attack on his brother. When a teenage woman and a member of the Johnson-affiliated Raiders was charged in connection with the death, he had the evidence he needed and began planning a revenge attack. The Aston double murder was a watershed moment in the Birmingham underworld, making the point at which women became legitimate targets in the turf war between its 2 main rivals. Amardeep Bassi, a journalist who has written a book on the subject, said at the time, "From that moment on, women in gangs were seen as fair game." We will also be covering an in-depth video on the Birmingham gang wars, so please keep a lookout for that. So what are your thoughts about the Birmingham riots and the shooting of a police helicopter while the streets lay with blood of opposing gangs and unrelenting attacks towards the police? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, stay safe.